Southern Rock, Country, WSDQ Dunlap, WEPG South Pittsburgh, the Copperhead, WSDG Soddy Daisy, Chattanooga. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nukenomics with David Toulis.
Hi, this is David Toulis. You've just been hearing Russell, the kid who runs Generation Z. If you have a tech interest, suggest that you have your son or maybe your daughter listen to Russell. He's very well informed. He gathers together all the best news of the day, touching on tech, the internet, 3D printing, telecom mergers. We just heard about the proposed buyout by Comcast of a corporate rival. And a good show to listen to, and I want you to think about Copperhead 1240. We are the little station that could, and pretty soon it won't be just the conditional tense. It will be the little station that can and that does in the direction of talk. We are a talk station, and though I know you really enjoy rock and country music, and I like some of the songs, my own proclivity is to have conversation, preferably intelligent, informed, and maybe even lococentric conversation. We will be having some globocentric, if you will, conversation soon as we gather our programming together. We're going to have Coast to Coast at midnight well, I guess weeknights, Coast to Coast, from midnight to 6. I think the name is Chuck Norrie is the name of the host. And Laura Ingram, she's a lawyer, a very well-spoken homeschool mom, I believe, and she is just as sharp and insightful as can be on the national scene. We'll have some patriotic / constitutional oriented programming. Watch out, though. That might be the sign that we have a terrorist angle to our existence. If you believe the good people are always so suspicious. They have categorized people who care about the Constitution as enemies of the state. Did you ever see that movie that stars Will Smith called Enemy of the State? It's a terrific yarn. And when it came out, there were people at church who said, I saw that movie and I thought, that's about David Toulis. and indeed it was in many ways. I was an enemy of the state, and I have in surrendering to the avatar that was assigned to me, I have launched my non-compliance in other ways that are not visible to the good people. Our show is nukenomics.com, and my name is David Toulis. I do thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. We're here at Copperhead 1240 from 1 to 3 in the week, and I work every day to and look forward to seeing you. Look forward to having you your finger there on your work, maybe on your steering wheel, but on your work, and not approaching the dial, the scan button, not pushing over on the FM for some music, but figuring, well, let's see what David has to say today. Let's see if there's something that he can fill in for me that might be useful to me. And the areas that we are filling in is local economy and the free market. I have a local-centric perspective on the free market, and I believe that the free market is best understood in terms of local economy. Of course, there's a global economy, there's national economy, and there is, of course, cartel economy, there is debt capital economy. There are all kinds of economic systems that are functioning, and capitalism is the one that I defend. I defend liberal free market capitalism. It's the idea of the market, and we know that there's much abuse of power. The free market is sent reeling and is made to go away when we have actors on the scene, corporate actors usually, often in the form of governments. Governments are commercial actors today, and bigger than any other actor. And they play on their power to get their way and to make things opaque so that they can keep their their high places. And the free market does not tolerate that. The free market likes open economy. It likes grace, the grace economy. I think that's our theme today. The free market is one where grace works and force is withdrawn. Force is retired. It is sent to the old folks' home to rock quietly with others there on the front porch, with the occasional creak of the wooden parts working together there as it whiles away the hours and waits for the CBS News at 6:30, and then dinner. That's where the state needs to be. And the free market is delighted when it can go about its business, which is to say you, my listener, going about your business, whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur, a businessman, an artist, a writer, an inventor, a programmer, whatever you are. If you can do that with the fewest hands of steel upon you, the more productive you're going to be, and the more valuable your properties will become, and the greater riches Chattanooga will have. Not because it is taxing you more, because you're richer and more productive and wealthier, but because as you increase your wealth, you are much more likely to give it away. And that is the grace economy idea. Of course, because you are coerced into charity, there is the natural response that you have, and that I have too, to have a hard heart to giving things away, because so much is taken in the name of goodness, in the name of the poor, the sick, the elderly. We are made indifferent to them, and this is a grievous spiritual problem. It's a spiritual problem. Christianity addresses it, yes, it does, but it's a problem that makes Chattanooga and Hamilton County, and the place where you're from, if you happen to be from another place, think of moving here, of course. Just think about what a great place Chattanooga is to live in. We have prosperity that's been cut. It's been reduced. It's been pushed back. As de Tocqueville says in Volume 2, back at about page 280 of Democracy in America, a great quote, by the way, you'll find at newgonomics.com. Just type in Tocqueville, Tocqueville. He says that democratic despotism in America that he saw coming, he saw it coming very, very well in the 1830s. Democratic despotism doesn't work by crushing people. It doesn't work by blowing them up. It works by erecting innumerable barriers in front of them, sapping their spirit, having so many little doors that have to be gone through in the way of official bribes and licenses and fees and inhibitions to liberty, that in the end there is a kind of sleep that drowses the American man, like you, and puts further away the great things that he aspires to do, the great plans, the inventions he proposes to develop, like Gutenberg. I hope we can talk about Gutenberg a little bit today, the deviser of movable type, who was a local economy actor in the town of Mainz, Germany, before the arrival of the press, and he is credited with the development of the printing press. He was a local economy man. What you face is something that is very difficult. What you face is a non-grace economy, and your whole idea as a man in Chattanooga is to be not wealthy. That comes later. To be useful, to be serviceable, and that is what every entrepreneur is. Whether he runs a shoe shop, whether he runs a garage, Chuck over at the Speedy's oil change place, men like him, his whole life is thinking about his customers, all the people who know him, who bring their cars to Chuck for transmission. He has a transmission shop next to Speedy's oil change. He's an entrepreneur with 4 Speedy's outlets in Chattanooga, and I think one nice big transmission shop on Hickson Pike near Northgate Mall. Well, a man like that, he works in terms of his customers, right? He's always thinking about his customers, and the moment he starts thinking about himself, the moment Chuck starts worrying about things like cash flow or these other things, and there are a lot of worries when you have business, and you have employees, and you have taxes to pay, and forms to fill out, and licensures to keep updated, and fire exits and fire signs, all these things that are incumbent upon you as a subject, right? At the moment, if he starts, he has all these problems from government, but if he takes his eye off of the customer and starts worrying about all his problems as an owner, as a capitalist, as a small businessman, well, then Chuck is not going to serve his customers. He will not have clients. He will simply have unhappy customers, people who don't go back to Hickson Transmission. Well, it's always a temptation to forget the customer. But Chuck at Hickson Transmission and Speedy's, he doesn't forget the customer, right? He's always thinking about the customer, and so he is enriching his area of service. And his wealth is not just in increased revenues in his business. His wealth is that he serves more people. In other words, you might say, bows before more owners of cars who, as they step out from their clanking vehicles that need repair, he is there on his knees, as we're saying, how can I help you? I'm here to help you. I'm here to serve you. What can I do for you? Tell me your problems. I'm here to listen and to understand, and then to fix the problems at the lowest price. That's called the grace economy, But there are many, many arguments against the grace economy, and we're going to explore those today, as we do every day. And that's because in economics, there is a conflict. Economics is about it is a moral story. The economy is a fable. It is a night-night story that your 11-year-old would love to hear if you could just make it lively for him and show that there is a conflict of moral precept in the economy. The economy is the stage. And there's the good guy, the grace player, the one who's always thinking about the other. Then there's the villain in the piece. And the villains take various forms, and often they are officially elected. Often they are hired by municipal corporations, they're hired by state governments, they're hired by anonymous agencies that have letters of the alphabet stacked arbitrarily against each other. And they are the villains. But remember, every good story always has the winning of the right. Now, I know there are many postmodern movies today that are just bleak. They're just bleak, and at the end of them, you just have the sense that there's no point in living, that there really is no hope, that we are a lost people, we have a lost cause. The world around us is full of low-hanging, not fruit, but low-hanging, nearly bursting gray and black clouds blotting out the sun. And there is no sun out there outside of your window. It's all gray. And, well, my theory is that local economy is that morality play, if you will. And there's the grace actor, and then there is the villain of the piece who has a smile. You could even say the villain of the piece pretends to serve, and that's, you just think of the story of the Moor in Shakespeare, and Desdemona, the Moor's wife, the Moorish general's wife, and then his chief of staff, Iago. And Iago is a man with a nameless hatred of the Moor, and he convinces the general to smother his own loving Desdemona, and he is made partly gratified by that. There is something of that going on here, and the smiling character is one whom you, perhaps, if you live in District 7 of the city of Chattanooga, you have elected to office. And we're going to talk about this wonderful and amazing character with a great smile, this very victorious smile that he presents on TV 12's newscast. And he's a very handsome man, by the way, very handsome man. And his claims are just remarkable, the courage of his claim. He is homosexual. And his claim against the grace economy, against the free market, against the people, the voters of Chattanooga, are simply, we have to say they're splendid. They are just splendid. And with the aid of an attorney, they have been dressed up in the form of a lawsuit. And they are really remarkable. And I hope if you go to newganomics.com, you will find out more about what these claims are. My name is David Toulis, and I am a very mild-mannered editor. Formerly at the newspaper, I worked for 24 years in the same room over on East 11th Street, hired as a copy editor by the old stalwart neo-Confederate Republican conservative editor of the paper, Lee Anderson, many years ago, and left a couple years ago to take up my career as a writer. And that's what I do. I'm a writer and an editor. And my website is one that not many people go to. And that's quite all right. I'm very content to understand how local economy works. And not just local economy, but the idea of reforming things, making things better, rebuilding things. These are ideas, and these concepts are ones that are not understood by most people. Okay, they're not intended for mass consumption. They really can't be consumed in a mass way because they are, well, they have the nougat-centric perspective, and they have a sane perspective in Christianity, from which I borrow much as an analyst, as a surveyor of the passing scene, like you. And I know you're not a Christian, and you have sympathy to Christianity still, but I'm a practicing Christian, and so I hope that between us we can see things that are useful to both of us. Okay, useful to you and to me. And I'm really grateful that you're giving me a few minutes of your time here. Our show is newganomics.com. We're at the Copperhead Station, the NASCAR station. If you want to hear NASCAR in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, well, only at Copperhead, 1240, will you find that great all-American anti-government sourced sport of the race cars. We're also the station, since we are the man station, that has a great interest in the manly subjects of hunting and fishing. And of course, in my estimation, the free market is very manly as well. It is a manly subject because it is about virtue. And of course, virtue is connected to the word virility. If you're a man, let's just back up for a second. Virile is sexually potent. Okay, virile is strong and manly. It is determining, right? It is a determining force of nature, if you will. A good man, like you, my listener, you're virile. But virile and virtue are connected. In the Latin, they have the same root. And so virtue is, of course, rightness. It's not priggishness. Virtue is not, namby-pamby Christianity. That's not virtue necessarily. It's not Phariseeism. Virtue is doing the right thing, believing the right thing, and in my estimation, I can't see how it really can exist apart from God. And I know a lot of people borrow from Christianity all the time, and that's okay. But in my case, I would say virtue is personified by God, and we are supposed to, as people, as residents of this town, we are supposed to exhibit His virtues in how we live. That's why I think I'm going to help you maybe today just a tad in this area about the grace economy, because the grace economy is how American capitalism works. Even though Christianity is in some respects the minority report, Christianity has the template upon which capitalism works. There are several books that touch on this question, and I think of Ernst Weber's, the German sociologist, study in the 1920s, and I'm trying to remember the title now. It's the Protestant Work Ethic and the Rise of Capitalism, I think, is pretty close to the title of his book. And then there is another one is published by Thomas Nelson in Nashville by India's greatest Christian theologian, Vishal Mangawati, and that is the book that shaped your world. It's a history of the Bible, and how the Christian theory undergirds science, it undergirds human progress, it undergirds even women's rights. Women's rights come from Christianity, even though the proponents of women's rights and suffrage turned against it. They did get their idea of human dignity from Christianity. It is much of what they argue for now, of course, is anti-Christian and hostile to family, hostile to capital. But it does come from Christianity. So I hope I can maybe give you a little bit of insight into that system of thought, which surrounds you. I mean, you are surrounded by it, and I know you don't believe in it, and you don't believe in God, and you don't believe the claims made about Jesus Christ. But the thinking among people around you is extensive, and the evidences of it are, apart from people you know, I would say overwhelming. But anyway, just wanted to mention, since it's getting near the end of the week, if you think about getting a pizza, I want you to go to Jets Pizza, one of my advertisers here at Nuganomics.com and at our little station. Jets Pizza, get the deep dish square pizza. You will like that. And the shop is on Hickson Pike in the Bilo Shopping Center at the S-curves. And just call 757-1616. That's 757-1616. A small, local-centric, local economy enterprise. And going from small scale to large, also, if you need a car, right? You need a pizza and you need a car. Think about buying your next car from Capital Toyota. The McCamey family runs Capital. It's a local family, not a corporate chain. It's on Lee Highway. There's a special on the Camry right now. If you buy through the lending process, you get a 0% APR loan and a $1,000 rebate if you buy the Camry, which is, of course, the best car you can get. These are 300,000-mile cars. If you agree with that proposal, then you're one who understands the car to be not just a drain and an expense that loses value after you drive it off the lot. It is an investment. And so, buy a Camry, buy a new one, and it'll last you for 25 years, and put 300,000 miles of tarmac under you. These are a couple of local economy notes just in the business department. I hope you will remember that I would like to be giving grace to others and get a little bit grace myself. So mention me to the people you deal with in local economy, the folks I've had contact with and who have some interest in what we're saying. No one agrees with everything I propose, of course, but they have an interest in the overall theory. And capital is my theme, and Capital Toyota is where you should get your car, and Jets, down on the other side of things in the immediate consumables, is where I recommend you try the deep dish square pizza. Well, before the time gets away from me, I just wanted to get in the editorial in the Wall Street Journal in Tuesday about the Chattanooga situation. Very, very insightful piece of writing. I've not had a lot to say about it because I know everyone else is talking about Volkswagen and the UAW, but it's a great editorial, and one paragraph. Hang on.
Get the latest news and information now on your Twitter account. Search Hot News Radio. That's Hot News Radio. For the latest news and information, go to Hot News Radio. That's twitter.com. Then search Hot News Radio. Hot News Radio is a service of Copperhead 1240.
It says, Mr. King, the UAW chief, colluded with IG Metall, Volkswagen's German union, to neutralize Volkswagen management. It pitched the collaborative vision of a labor management works council at the plant that makes the VW Passat. And it claimed to have learned its lesson from the confrontation and strikes that hurt Detroit's automakers. Volkswagen management gave the union the run of the plant to lobby workers while denying similar privileges to union opponents. So it's nothing short of remarkable that the union couldn't make the sale. Hang on.
When your loved one dies, we in the South say he's passed, gone to another place. She left us here. Death is so much more than a trying thing, but we have to deal with it. You want a funeral home that helps you get through your ordeal. You want a professional, but not one who lacks warmth or sincerity. I'm Josh Jenkins. That's what I offer at Hamilton Funeral Home and Cremation Services in Hickson. Care for You, a local owner and operator who keeps your funeral costs down. A great place in which to remember, even celebrate. Just call me 531-3975. This is Josh. Again, the number is 531-3975. Hamilton Funeral Home. Oh, one more thing. Love your neighbor. Buy local.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and soil damage are prime causes for indoor air quality. Ducts, indoor air professionals, better known as duct busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 refinable duct busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce the poor illnesses. Prevent fire by cleaning your water lines. Mark and his parents, Jake and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems for 16 years. Ducts, indoor air professional. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Call now.
Hi, my name is Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. I help people who want to be self-employed. I help my clients through a very fact-based process to understand all the criteria that's important to them. I then help them look at franchises or businesses that fit their criteria. Once my clients find the right opportunity, I help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying themselves for the startup phase. If you're just curious to understand the types of businesses that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My phone number is 423-875-5621.
All this month, take advantage of 0% financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. This is unheard of. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. You have to get the Capital Toyota on Lee Highway. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. Capital Toyota is one of the world's classiest mid-price cars. Capital is your Lexus and Scion deal. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. Capital Toyota on Lee Highway with a savings that much better.
Okay, you get your taxes done by a franchise, but you're just a number. Your preparer might have had a 9-week course, but he's a number 2. Are you creating prosperity for your customers and yourself? E.J. Pelton clears the thick underbrush of taxes, helps make your way straight. Don't let uncertainty dampen your local economy spirit. Look, come on, let E.J. Pelton Tax Service handle your taxes. Eric Pelton is the Chattanooga and Sunny Daisy tax specialist with 37 years under his belt. Eric Pelton also does bookkeeping and accounting to help you reach your entrepreneurial and financial goals. Confidential advice, consulting, and other services. Yours for the asking. EJPelton.com. That's EJPelton.com. Call 332-3339. That's 332-3339. Think ahead.
The American Outdoorsman. America's premier hunting and fishing radio show. Explore the finest fishing and hunting adventures with the industry's leading outdoorsmen. Great tips and techniques that will enhance your experience in the great outdoors. Enjoy today. The Man Radio Station. Hunting, fishing, NASCAR, Tennessee Talk, Southern Rock, Kickin' Country, 1240 The Copperhead. Get the latest news and information now. On your Twitter account, search Hot News Radio. That's Hot News Radio. For the latest news and information, go to Hot News Radio. That's twitter.com. Then search Hot News Radio. Hot News Radio is a service of Copperhead 1240.
Well, yesterday I wasn't able to give you details about the Chris Anderson lawsuit, but I did get a copy kindly sent to me by his attorney, Stuart James. It was filed in circuit court, and my essay today is at newgonomics.com that gives an analysis of this litigation. And we need to talk about the lawsuit because it depicts an economy, it depicts a life and worldview which is very hostile to yours on numerous points. Okay, there are many points at which it's hostile to you, the listener, and it's also hostile in conception to local economy, to Chattanooga being a prosperous, wealthy place, desirable as a relocation place for families, desirable as a relocation place for small businesses. His conception of the world is homosexual. It is homosexual-centric, if you will. In other words, it centers on the ardent personal license that is envisioned in the homosexual theory, in which there is no God and there is no necessity for controlling the sexual life of man. Okay, that the idea that there's any kind of law that governs sex, like there is a law that governs gravity, is an absurdity. There is no law that governs sex. We are, in fact, free agents. We are not bound by law. We have total license as individuals. And culture, society, and Tennessee law, even the ordinance of Chattanooga, the corporation created by the General Assembly, even that ordinance has to reflect our view of the world, the view of license. And of course the word licentious, which means, well, what does licentious mean? Well, licentious, you could say, is lewd and self-serving. Licentious is what you have in pornography. Okay? It's about people who are just using each other for their own pleasure. It doesn't have mutuality in it in pornography. It depicts and it gives you the fantasy that you have total license to do whatever your heart desires, whatever your life as a man desires. That's what pornography feeds, that idea that you have. But some people, they don't just consume pornography, they live out the pornographic ideal. They live that out because they have license to do whatever they want. And there is no restraint by God. There is no restraint by culture, custom. There's nothing to be ashamed of course. That is, the fact that anything could be shameful is simply an anachronism. And anyone who says that there should be something shameful, that there should be something to which one says no, toward which one's desires do not go, that person is to be shunned as a retrograde, right? A retromagant. Or retromagant is a backwards pissing animal. Okay, that's how the traditional perspective is viewed. You are a retromagant, a backwards pissing animal. And the homosexual theory is not. I think there's something lacking in the homosexual framework of discussion, and the homosexual framework of politics, as we're going to see as we look at the lawsuit for the next couple minutes. It is not about toleration of others. It is really a very, well, let's put it this way. Chris Anderson's theory of economics, of local economy, is the opposite of the grace economy that we are exploring here on our program. Prosperity comes by, in the act of grace to the customer. And just, all right, so how does that work? Okay, the marketplace is full of people who are not just seeking to enrich themselves and seeking to outcompete somebody else. Okay, sometimes you have people like that, but generally the marketplace is an amicable place where people live out their callings and their genius in the service of others. That's the Christian analysis of the marketplace. You work, you think, you write, you do, you produce, you build a factory, you run the mine so that you can provide books more cheaply, as Gutenberg did, than others. Or you can provide, as Bessemer, the inventor of steel, did. You provide a steel that lets you make very fine, small objects that are very, very tough because they're not just iron, which is brittle, but they're steel, which is harder and flexible by his designs in England in the 1800s. So the marketplace is always where people are improving things and making life better and cheaper for others, right? Making their costs less, giving them extra time in their lives, giving them extra capital, because what you have produced saves lives. It reduces costs. It reduces the prospect of injury, perhaps. You see, that's the marketplace. Now, the Chris Anderson marketplace, the homosexual marketplace, we're going to talk about how that marketplace works. It is in a nutshell, if you have to go, the nutshell argument is that the homosexual marketplace is not about grace, it's about force. And we can see it manifested in a very important area in Chattanooga life, and that is the election process. Because, as you know, Chris Anderson has sued the Hamilton County Election Commission, saying that its members voted illegally and unconstitutionally in allowing a recall petition to be heard, allowing it the first step. Of course, the election process and the recall process is not about arbitrary whimsies of citizens who throwing out anybody for any reason, as his litigation text suggests. It is a very rational and reasonable step, and it bears thinking for a minute how it works. A few people want to have a recall, so they gather together a petition, they all sign it. It's a tiny number, 25 people or something like that. They submit it to the Election Commission. The Election Commission says everything's in order. Here's the ballot question, okay. All right, now you've got this much time to gather this many signatures more as a sample of the district. It is a challenge for these tiny handful. They have to get a larger sampling. And so if their claims get traction among the constituents, well, then they have 1,700 or 1,600 signatures attained in proper form of registered voters in that district. And then if there are enough and the time deadline is met, well, the Election Commission has no choice but to say, yes, well, the people are speaking, and we want to hear them speak with finality on the question at hand, and we're going to have the measure put on the ballot. Well, Chris Anderson says that this is impossible. This simply cannot happen because there are red reasons and green reasons. The green reasons are the ones that are approved by him and by his argument of what the nature of American law is trending toward. And those reasons would be numerous. One, the voters don't like the way he voted. The voters are offended by the fact he referred to them as blacks as those people. He has not paid enough attention to the housing problems among the poor people in his district. He has said too little or done too little or made too few motions in the direction of public safety and youth shootings and gang involvement. He's not really satisfied their expectations of him on that point. Okay, these are all green reasons. They're go reasons. Yes, check mark. Righto. A-OK. These are A-OK reasons. They are colored green, right? Because if they are there, they let the process go forward, according to Chris Anderson. Well, what about the other reasons? Well, the whole conflict is over the other reasons that are numerous and that are sourced in religion. Now, I think everybody who's been quoted, even there's a man whose name I don't have in front of me. His name is Mahmoud. It's kind of a Muslim-sounding name. I don't know if he is a practicing Christian. I don't know if he's a Muslim, but there is one man who may not be a Christian, but I think everybody else who's been quoted in the press and discussing Chris Anderson is a Christian of some kind. There are numerous ministers of the gospel who have spoken up. There was a press conference the other day, yesterday, about it, and they are taking a position we could say is centered in religion. Okay, religion being the area of life that touches on ultimate questions, our origins, and the nature and person of God. Okay, that's you could say religion is that. And we are all religious people. I'm religious. You could say I obey God. I try to please God. I repent of my sins. You, my listener, you're not a Christian. Okay, fine, but you are religious too. You have to realize that by nature, as God made us, we are religious. We always have a God in view, and we serve that God whether we realize it or not. And that would be your worldview. Okay, your worldview. And if you're not a Christian submitting to God, being one of His sheep, as the Christians say, then you are following your own shepherd. And as that very childish poem from the English poet refers to, you are the you're the captain of your own destiny. You're your own pilot. And so the red reasons they come from what Chris Anderson says are discriminatory points of origin. And what he's proposing to do is deny all those potential voters who have other than reasons that rise out of Christianity to have their interest in his recall thrown out, deleted. And the only ones, and that is because there is at least one, and as he shows in his lawsuit, there are several who have arguments that are about God, about what God requires of men. And in the fact part of his lawsuit, it's a kind of a summation of the news that you've been reading about in the Chattanooga Times Free Press, at Nooga.com, at TV12, and even at Chattanoogan.com, run by John Wilson. Let's see. One of the targets of the lawsuit, in fact, one named in the suit, which is very bizarre, is Charlie Weissong, who is a Christian man. He's the man who helped 20 years ago defeat the abortion clinic. He of late has been involving himself in the Ten Commandments. He wants there to be a copy of the Ten Commandments in every household. That's a kind of a ministry. And he preaches. I think he may be an ordained minister. And the lawsuit points out that he has a long anti-lug butt history. Lug butt is my usage for LBGT. I don't like acronyms. I think if I can turn an acronym into a word, I will. Lug butt seems to be appropriate. Weissong has a long anti-lug butt history. He has actively made comments against Councilman Anderson because the councilman is openly gay. The lawsuit quotes the Times Free Press story when Mr. Weissong was ordered to sit down during a city council meeting after they referred to gay rights as sodomy and called a councilman's plans for same-sex benefits, quote, evil and wicked. If this council entertains the wicked, evil ideas of Chris Anderson, local preacher and activist Charlie Weissong began Tuesday night, that's quoting the Times Free Press story, as quoted in the lawsuit of Chris Anderson. And Weissong is said to be an active participant in the recall and is leading the recall effort. He is advising other recall participants and is misguiding them so as to create a pretext for the recall to hide the true intentions of the recall to remove Council Anderson because he is gay and pushing the gay agenda. And the story just laboriously tells how Charlie Weissong's son created a Facebook page and obtained the domain recallanderson.com. These are all things to point to as creating a pretext for the recall. Yeah, Mahmoud Abdullah, owner of Southside Market, is quoted in the lawsuit as saying his, meaning Anderson's, only goal is to boost homosexuality. He doesn't represent what the people want. So notice what's happening. All these arguments that come out of the moral world are marshaled together like the casino table master with his little stick, who shoves the chips around on the table. They're all being shoved into the red area that is the forbidden zone, where opinions, motivations, causes, reasons, thoughts, ideas, hopes, dreams that are illicit for any government agency to act upon are gathered. The lawsuit quotes Gil Shropshire and his open letter to Mayor Burke and members of the City Council. And this letter is viewed as just a pretext. In other words, because the open letter by a resident of the county, of the district, mentions other things, these other things are to be completely disregarded because they are merely pretextual. You see, they are not genuine. They are simply props of arguments that Charlie Weissong, though he's a very good speaker, he's not smart enough to insert them in the minds of people and have them speak these words unwittingly. We have to understand, the lawsuit turns grown men, including ministers of the gospel who are black, into children. They are turned into children. They are the object of manipulation by the artful and articulate and spiritually motivated and discriminatorily discriminatorily opinionated Charlie Wysong. These are impermissible. This is an impermissible activity. And so the lawsuit, in the fact part of it, it's about 25 or 26 pages, talks about how Charlie Wysong, quote, is actively manipulating Gil Shropshire. The letter was created to hide the true motivation behind the recall and is a pretext for the recall. There's another part of, that I won't mention right now about how it is said that by Chris Anderson that ministers of the gospel cannot have any interest in the political world. They have to be totally silent. In other words, if Christianity affects laws, which of course it does, then even so, a Christian minister and a church which may have a 501c3 tax exemption from the good people at the IRS, he is obligated to be silent. He must be silent. And Chris Anderson is aggrieved. He is aggrieved that Christianity has an influence in the public life. And in my essay today, I make just a brief comment at the very beginning about how the idea of Chris Anderson that Christianity should be simply between your two ears, that is an idea that has been advanced within Christendom. Okay, this is not something that he imagined on his own, smart man that he is, Chris Anderson. The idea that Christianity should live just between the ears of the believer is very common. It comes out of Christian fundamentalism, out of the Baptistic worldview that dominates Chattanooga. Chattanooga is dominated by a Christian line of argument which is, well, it's at least as old as the 1600s. It came from the Dutch heretic Arminius, who did not want God to be sovereign and who developed very articulately the doctrine of free will, the free will theory that unmans God, takes God from his throne, and erects man as his own savior in at least one vital context. And this part of Christianity, with which you're familiar by knowing people who are in it, this part of Christianity subjectivizes Christianity. It subjectivizes the faith. It privatizes Christianity. And so Chris Anderson is just picking up where the Christians have been going for decades on their own, which is to say, withdrawal from culture, withdrawal from the public realm, from the marketplace of ideas, from the conflicts at the court, from the election booth, from the university dean's office. Christianity has retreated from there too, and many other areas, from economics. I mean, why is it that Christians are always aghast when I tell them about constitutional money and how constitutional money is really a reflection of God's goodness and God's favor upon a people, and that if they don't have constitutional money, they are under a judgment, because inflation and inflationary economies are always fraudulent, and they victimize the poor. They victimize everyone who is trapped in those economic systems by legal tender laws. So, in other words, the laws that say you have to accept that cheap green rectangle in payment for debt. There's another quote in the lawsuit from a man named George Goss from the Times Free Press. Mr. Anderson never said anything whatsoever about pushing for sodomite benefits, and that's just how I'm going to put it. He never said anything about that when he was running to get elected. The people of that district, they're gracious people, they're generous people. Most of them probably suspected Mr. Anderson was a homosexual, but they didn't pry. They just listened to what he said, and he seemed like a good candidate, better than the incumbent, Manny Rico. And so Mr. Anderson won. And again, he didn't say anything about his plans for the gay benefit plan or anything else. And that's why and so the grievance on the part of George Goss is that he pulled a fast one on us. He didn't tell us about this plan, and we didn't hold him being gay against him. So you see, there is goodwill toward gays. And And that's something that we need to understand, that gays have it very well right now. In fact, they're at the best. They're having it better than they will in the future. Because in the future, when if the law turns in their favor from a national verdict against marriage, gays will be a stench in everyone's nose. If the law is turned and marriage is purportedly destroyed by a high court ruling, and the whole legal system is effectively demolished by a nuclear detonation from the pens of the 12 Supreme Court justices, there's going to be such dislike for homosexuals. And their prosecutions of vendors, of bakers, of people who make wedding cakes, of wedding photographers, such as Alex McMahon, people who run restaurants, editors and publishers, the litigation that's going to be filed in waves against them, because that is going to generate, well, let me ask you, is it going to generate a lot of goodwill to the homosexual cause, or is it going to generate increasing and poisonous antipathy? Well, I think the second is much more likely. So right now, the gays are at their peak. They're at the best. The shares are almost at the top. They're right. They've been rising meteorically in the past year. They took a parabolic rise on the chart, you might say, by court action. But there is a peak, right? As market shares peak before the crash, there is that parabolic rise. And this rise, by the way, is evident in numerous markets that I hear about and read about. So there's a possibility of a coincidence, as I was telling my neighbor Ray Holmes, the former soldier and the man who used to work in the highway department. I suggested that there's a confluence of rising peaks of these chart indicators that show the market top, after which there is the market collapse. And it's possible that there's going to be a coincidence between equities peak, the nominal value of the markets, the stock markets, and the nominal value, if you will, of the gay shares, the gay theory as it is understood and publicly accepted and approved by many people, I think with a sense of goodwill, as opposed to a sense of what the gay agenda really is and where it wants to go. Mr. Anderson, in his lawsuit, is concerned about the costs of another election. He also says that if he's thrown out of office, then he won't have anyone to represent him in that district. Just think about that for a second. If he's thrown out of office, Chris Anderson won't have anyone to represent him in his district, and that's very important that he be properly represented. The lawsuit is not in proper form and pushed by outside motives. So what happens, again, there's the green argument and the red, and the homosexual city council member wants to deny the sovereign people of Chattanooga, the free people of Tennessee as they reside in Chattanooga, from having a chance, the exciting chance of throwing the bum out. This is David Tillis.
And financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. This is unheard of. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry.
Okay, so where do I go now?
All this month, take advantage of 0% financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. Capital Toyota is home of the world's classiest midprice car, the Camry. Capital is your Lexus and Scion deal. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. Capital Toyota on Lee Highway with a savings that much better.
When your loved one dies, we in the South say he's passed, gone to another place. She left us here. Death is so much more than trying time, but we have to deal with it. You want a funeral home that helps you get through your ordeal. You want a professional, but not one who lacks warmth or sincerity. I'm Josh Jennings. That's what I offer at Hamilton Funeral Home and Cremation Services in Gibson. Care for you. A local owner and operator who keeps your funeral costs down. A great place in which to remember, even celebrate the life the winner's gone. Just call me, 531-3975. This is Josh. Again, the number is 531-3975. Hamilton Funeral Home. Oh, one more thing. Love your neighbor. buy local.
Picture that cool steam rising from your breath.
So we need to get to the point of capital.
Take you aloft, easing all your senses. I'm talking about Jet's Pizza.
No continuity
If you
tab.
like Jet's Pizza, or take home your steamer.
Insulate.
Take Dish Square Pizza. You'll
Want
love Jet's.
insulation.
They use only the best ingredients in a family recipe. Also try the cheesy bread, wings, chicken, or bread with bacon, antipasto or Greek
What about Old
Jet's Pizza and buy low near the S curves.
Great.
Open till 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Friday and Saturday. You can order online or have it delivered. JetsPizza.com. That's JetsPizza.com. Or call them now. They'll have it ready when you get there. 757-1616. That's 757-1616. Hot and delightful above the clouds. Jet's Pizza. Now that's Italian.
You're a hard worker. Your little business is your future. EJ Pelton Company is an accounting and tax service that works to help you keep what you have earned. EJ Pelton keeps current on tax laws and has been helping people like you 37 years. EJ Pelton has an office on Dayton Pike in Sunny Daisy, open all year to serve you. Think ahead, ejpelton.com. Call 332-3339. That's 332-3339. That's ejpelton.com. Think ahead.
All systems go. Advantage Printing and Mailing Services. Your advantage is in our name, customer service. Advantage Printing and Mailing Services. Family owned and operated. Advantage Printing and Mailing Services features the highest quality in all your printing and graphic needs, including engineering drawings, offset printing and mailing services. Advantage Printing and Mailing Services, your one-stop shop for color graphics and much, much more. Call 629-423-629-1800 for Advantage Printing and Mailing Services. 4031 Brainerd Road in Chattanooga. That's 4031 Brainerd Road in Chattanooga. Call 629-1800, 423-629-1800 for Advantage Printing and Mailing Services. Your advantage is in our name, customer service. All systems go.
You feel better outside your home or business than in. Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes for indoor air quality. Ducts, indoor air professionals, better known as duct busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 refinable duct busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses.
Protected class. He says he is a member of protected class.
Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems. 16 years. Ducts, indoor air professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Get the latest news and information now. On your Twitter account, search Hot News Radio. That's Hot News Radio. For the latest news and information, go to Hot News Radio. That's twitter.com. Then search Hot News Radio. Hot News Radio is a service of Copperhead 1240. The man.
Hi, David Toulis. Our show is neweconomics.com. We cover local economy every day from 1 to 3. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. I'm grateful. If you want to have some good business advice, I think you should contact Bruce Krebs, who runs Entrepreneur Source. Call him at 875-5621. That's 875-5621. He is the source for entrepreneurship. If you want to get into a franchise, Bruce can help you. Entrepreneur Source is his little franchise business, and he is the real expert in Chattanooga on giving you that new stream of income that you need because you face, and as we face, all of us, economic disaster ahead, grave dislocations, acts of divine discontinuity, even in the economic world. Also, in the same line, there's another source for you to consider, and that's Eric Pelton. Eric Pelton, as a businessman, has been in the same line of work for 37 years in Chattanooga. He's a CPA, and runs ejpelton.com, which is a tax service that has a great little office in Saudi Daisy, quite busy. So call first there, but the main number is 622-3156, 622-3156, with two offices, one on Brainerd Road by Belvoir, the other in Saudi Daisy just north of the Bilo. And give him a call and see if he has time to chat with you about business. I think it's getting his busy season, and he's not as open to chatting with you on other topics than your tax return or your books. So he can help you in those areas. And when he's not busy, would love to talk with you, my Nuganomics.com listener, to see and help you evaluate your business idea. You have one, you need to have people give you feedback. And Eric Pelton is a man who can do that and would love to. But right, like I said, now it's getting to be busy season. Also, if you have air pollution problems, please consider calling Mark Thompson at Ducts, the Indoor Air Professionals. That's formerly known as Duct Busters. That's Ducts, D-U-C-T-Z. The number is 876-9907. That's 876-9907. And every Friday is Panera Posse, 6:45 a.m. at the Panera Bread Store. I'm invited every week, and I usually attend. And it's a very small and intimate get-together of kind of Ron Paulian, free market-oriented, homeschool, establishment questioning sorts of men. This is a guy thing, so you are my guy listener, and you are invited to come. If you come, I'll buy you a coffee, okay? Just feel free to show up. Let me know you're coming, and I'll be sure not to miss. I missed last week. My website is Nuganomics.com, Nuganomics.com. There's a contact portal. Just drop me an email, and I'll make contact back with you ASAP. Leave your phone number. I mentioned now just briefly the editorial in the Wall Street Journal. The next to the last paragraph says, "Don't believe those who say," it's about Volkswagen, who say this means the end of the UAW, the negative vote. It has too many friends in high political places, as the 2009 auto bailouts proved. Federal law is also stacked in favor of unions, and President Obama's NLRB is routinely stretching and breaking the law to make it even more so. But the fact that unions must rely on brute government force shows how out of touch they are with modern economic reality. American manufacturing is making a modest comeback with the help of rising labor costs in China and the American energy revolution. But it could stage an even bigger revival without the threat that unions could once again make American production uncompetitive. The last thing the U.S. economy needs, the Wall Street Journal says, is to import European labor practices in Chattanooga. And not for the first time, the workers are smarter than management. Our theme today, our theory, is that we need to have the grace economy running. We need to have that, and not the national economy. We need to have a lococentric, grace-oriented, other-centric, thinking of the other, local economy, personal in nature. And just by the way, there's a meeting this afternoon that John Moss from Moss Media Works is going to be holding, one of two, about using social media and social media types like me to cover business, cover news in Chattanooga. Notice what's happening. That is the decentralized model of potential news outlet, challenging the old school theory of the newsroom that is practiced by the Chattanooga Time-Free Press. A system I challenged before leaving. I said I'm not going to leave. I'm going to see if they'll agree with me that the newsroom needs to be completely overthrown and needs to take up the form of the internet. It needs to be an open newsroom, and the newspaper, Chattanooga Publishing Company, I argued, needs to become a utility. And I know that sounds really strange, but that was my proposal, and it was not well received. And so you have the old legacy newspaper newsroom model, centralized to the core, with a high-minded ethics policy, which drives out the best and keeps them away. I was one of them. I was one driven out by an unreasoning and constricted ethics rule. But some other things to mention just quickly, and by the way, Bradley County Commission took a stand against Common Core. I know that's something that you've heard a lot about and are interested in. And the reason Jeff Yarber and other commissioners voted to throw out and to recommend the throwing out of Common Core is that Common Core is more openly than it should bearing the factory school fangs. There's a quote in Chattanoogan.com from Vice Chairman Adam Lowe, and he says, "More localized adaptability and nuanced education provides results in the classroom as opposed to Common Core, the centralized, surveillance-based, data mining-oriented system." He said Common Core took the love out of the classroom and treated teachers like robots. Officials need to, quote, "follow principles to run their schools and allow teachers to teach," he said. That's Adam Long of the Bradley County Commission. And he says Mel Griffith told Holly Webb, the writer at Chattanoogan.com, "I'm very supportive of the goals of Common Core, but everything I hear tells me we're not going about it in the right way." And of course, the goals are the publicly stated goals. The real goals are hidden. Okay, you don't know what those goals are. They are private, corporate goals that affect and favor pedagogically oriented think tanks and data mining operations, research operations, university programs, and other feeders of that system, hangers-on of that system. So that's a bit of good news. In fact, it was also covered in the Times Free Press by the correspondent there, Paul Leach. And there's a great quote in Paul Leach's story at timesfreepress.com about the Common Core. And he says that, he's quoting Bradley County, Adam Lowe again, "The truth of the matter is we continue to teacher-proof the classroom." And he says that Jeff Yarber says, "With Common Core, we're tied to the federal system. We're tied to whatever the state does, like a dog on a chain." These are important quotes because they suggest that there is a perception that in its worst forms, statism and centralization are dehumanizing and not effective. But the question is, for local economy, when will Mr. Lowe, when will Mr. Yarber truly understand the marketplace? Because they don't. They don't understand the marketplace, and they will continue to patronize public schools, to have the county patronize the county school system, to subsidize it, and they are stuck in the old paradigm. They cannot get out of the old paradigm, which is overthrown by the PDF. Okay, let's just put it that way for short. The PDF has overthrown the university, has overthrown the factory school, and hardly anybody recognizes that. There's a story about City Judge Sherry Patey's son, Zachary. He has another case from the state against him. He's been accused of speeding. He's 20 years old. He's his own man. There's a story about an earlier conflict he had with the police. An officer said this is quoting Chattanoogan.com. Chattanoogan.com. City Judge son faces new charges is the headline. Patty exited the vehicle during the search of Card, another man, though he had been ordered to stay in the car. He was directed to go back to the vehicle. When Card had been placed on a curb, Patty was asked to exit. Police said he also had a strong odor of alcohol and was unsteady on his feet. He was placed in handcuffs and placed on the curb. Officers said that while they were struggling with another man, that Patty charged them. Two other officers arrived. Police officers just kind of gang up on people. 5 or 6 police cars flooding the night with flashing lights, and took Patey to the ground. In other words, they tackled him and knocked him over. In that case, Patey was charged with 4 counts: public intoxication, drinking underage, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest. And Mike Bell, the senator, the pro-family, local economy-oriented state senator, has withdrawn his what's called his gay wedding refusal bill as premature. He's worried that the federal court will overturn marriage by redefining marriage to destroy it. And he was trying to head off discrimination by homosexuals and their friends against people who deal with weddings, and that would be bakers and photographers and the like. And he dropped it, suggesting that current law in Tennessee protects people of faith. So, again, that's important. And I bring that up because we're facing what could be a legal revolution. As we had a revolution, we've had several, but the revolutions have been invariably favoring the centralized state, the credit economy, the national economy, destroying locale, destroying localism, destroying identity of place, overriding the mores and values, if you will, the religion that dominates in certain places. In the South, it is Christianity. And there's a move afoot to destroy these so-called vestiges of Christianity, the last gasp of Christianity. The gays hope that a gay ruling out of Washington next year will overturn the final bulwark of Christian capital. Our show is about capital. It is about money. It's about because money is and capital are terms that describe saved up labor. Okay, that's what it is. Capital is value over labor, human labor, value over people. Right? If you're a rich man, and I hope you are, and you have capital, that is to say you have saved up in your silver, your gold, your shares, your bank account, your children even. The capital you have is labor, future labor. And the goal of the free market is to see that labor finds the capital, that labor find their highest use. That is the purpose of the free market, and that end is attained only in the free market. Now, I want to say another word about Chris Anderson for a couple of minutes. Thank you for giving that couple of minutes to me. You are here at newgonomics.com. Our show is hosted by a delightful and a vigorous little radio station, very manly in its outlook with the NASCAR monopoly in our area and hunting and fishing, and of course the free market. Copperhead 1240. Copperhead 1240 is just a fine little station, and what I really appreciate about it, and the owner, whose name is Confederate Mike, by the way, is that I have discretion. I have discretion to say what I understand to be true. And I'm not kowtowing to a corporation. I'm not on anybody's payroll. I'm here at liberty. I'm here entrepreneurially. I'm investing in myself. As the editor of newgonomics.com, I'm hoping to have a return on my investment, and that may be a few years from now. But I'm willing to invest in myself, and I think you should do the same thing. You, my listener, should do that very thing. Take some of your savings and invest in yourself, in something you know how to do, something in which you are gifted or very experienced or very wise. The argument that Chris Anderson is making is as follows, okay? This is not the gracious local economy argument that you hear from me. It is, in fact, the rebuttal. The rebuttal that Chris Anderson makes is that we should have minders in the state, that the public should be corralled, that he, as a homosexual, should be insulated from his gay agenda. By that I mean he has a gay agenda. He convinced Jerry Mitchell and other members of the city council to favor the gay agenda, the anti-family and pro-homosexual agenda, which seems to have many things in favor of it, right? And he wants to be insulated from his actions by fending off the recall petition. And he's saying that the people who want to throw him out of office are against his person. He's not saying they're against his ideas or against his votes, right? He's saying they're against his person. He, in his flesh, in his manhood, in his manliness, in his persona propria, that is to say his natural fleshly person, right? The natural man apart from his legal identity, his avatar, his corporate person. hood. We all have corporate persona. Okay, that's called your avatar, and we are, with very few exceptions, as Americans, corporate people. We are not private people anymore. We are public people. We are corporations. All of us are corporations. And the effort, of course, by government is to make sure that you believe that you're a corporation and that you have to act in terms of corporations and that you have to file papers with it, pay remittances to it, etc., etc. You are understood to be a piece of property, and your head and owner is the greater corporation, either federal or state, and that you are bound to perform before it and for its benefit. But in his person, Chris Anderson wants to be insulated from his public acts, and his lawsuit is an attempt to provide him insulation from the public. The public, if they don't like his homosexual agenda, his homosexual vote, his homosexual words, his being funded by national gay groups, which he's getting money from them now on their crowdfunding websites. These things are to be separated from him. He cannot be held liable for his activity as a homosexual politician. Okay, that he is intolerant of people. He is intolerant of the common black man who is his constituent. The ministers who spoke against him 2 days ago are the descendants of slaves. They are free men now. They love the Lord Jesus. They preach the gospel. They are servants of the word. They have a ministerial function from God, just as the Election Commission, as Chris Anderson's lawsuit pointed out, has a ministerial function to the law, right? Ministerial simply means conveying a duty from a higher authority. And Chris Anderson is intolerant of these black people. They are to be pitied. They are not to be tolerated. He is a protected class. He makes it very clear in his lawsuit and states it at the end that he is a member of a protected class. That is to say, the homosexual, the man who has anal sex with another man. And of course, Jerry Mitchell agrees with that. In fact, Jerry Mitchell, the city council member, says that when you make love to your wife as a married man, you have a true liberty. You are enjoying her. The children are in bed. You have liberty to enjoy lovemaking with your wife. And he says that you, as a married man, and your intimate dealings with your mate, your wife, are equal to two men having anal sex together. Jerry Mitchell agrees with that. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's something that's reasonable? Well, Chris Anderson, in his view of the world as it is very testy. He's a testy, indignant, and hot member of a protected class. He is a man of privilege, being a homosexual, and cannot be held to account to the voters on account of his homosexual life and his view of law. His view of law is that the city government can pass an illegal ordinance outside the scope of its charter. An illegal act, an act ultra vires, as it's called in the law, an act outside of authority. And he's going to convince his colleagues, including Jerry Mitchell, to pass this ordinance. And he cannot be held to account for that. That is something, because he is a homosexual, passing a homosexual ordinance, he cannot be brought down because of that. Is that high-handedness, would you say? Is that high-handedness? Is that sensitive of local economy? Is there a lot of grace in his position? Is there? See if you can find it. And the ideas of capital that Chris Anderson represents are very state-oriented. The homosexual is a man who depends on the messianic caretaker state. He has no future without it. Marriage assumes children. Marriage assumes family. Marriage assumes even going to worship God on the Lord's day and spending time on that day in private prayer and meditation and public worship, and spending time in charity and time with family and reading. That's when you should do your reading. If you're a Christian, that's when you do your reading. I read my J.H. Mel Daubinet, by the way, and I've gotten through volume 4 now. Marriage assumes children, but gays don't have children. Say what you want about artificial insemination and various complicated and very expensive procedures. Say what you will about adoption. Again, where the state has to provide you with a victim child for your alleged union, dubbed in some states a marriage. You know, the gays assume they don't assume family as caretakers for old age. They assume they assume Greg Vidal is there with his retirement home. They don't have families, and so the homosexual, not having capital, not having the future growing up around him in increasingly larger size of boys' tennis shoes, he has only solitude in his old age. And in his retirement, there is the state. There is Social Security. There is his rich 401k. It's rich because, and all that social media consulting that he did as an activist, he earned a lot of money. He never had to spend it on children, right? He never had to invest in people. He invested in himself, and he bought shares in the Shanghai market. The idea of capital in the homosexual theory that Chris Anderson espouses is very short term. There is no continuity of capital. I have continuity of capital. I have 4 children, and I'm happily married, and I believe in continuity. I believe that there's a future. But the homosexual idea of capital has no continuity. There is just consumption and passing your legacy off to the Human Rights Fund, the $30,000, $50,000, $200,000 that you earned on the marketplace as the gay investor. You can give that to the Human Rights Campaign. And there's no continuity of capital between generations. Again, that's because there's that view that I don't have children to take care of me, so I have to have the state to do it. I have to have the state. So homosexuality, in theory, is preeminently statist in its outlook. In other words, the state is preeminent, the state is paramount, and the state takes care of everybody. We are all atoms. We are atomized. We're all individuals. There are not families. Families are a relic of the past. And we have a right to be indignant. We have a right to be intolerant. We have a right as homosexuals, as a protected class, to oppress you because you are a bigot. You, the Christian, you, the black minister, you are bigoted. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, this is David Toulis, and I hope that you've come away with an idea.
0% financing, $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back, or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. This is unheard of. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing, or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back, or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. But you have to get the Capital Toyota on Lee Highway. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing, or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back, or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. Capital Toyota is home of the world's classiest mid-price car, the Camry. Capital is your Lexus and Scion deal. All this month, take advantage of 0% financing, or a $1,500 rebate on your new Camry. That's right, $1,500 cash back, or 0% financing on a brand new Camry. Capital Toyota on Lee Highway with the savings are that much better.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself for the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
When your loved one dies, we in the South say he's passed, gone to another place. She left us here. Death is so much more than a trying time, but we have to deal with it. You want a funeral home that helps you get through your ordeal. You want a professional, but not one who lacks warmth or sincerity. I'm Josh Jennings. That's what I offer at Hamilton Funeral Home and Cremation Services in Hickson. Care for you. A local owner and operator who keeps your funeral costs down. A great place at which to remember, even celebrate the life of the one who's gone. Just call me, 531-3975. This is Josh. Again, the number is 531-3975. Hamilton Funeral Home.
Strong enough.
One more thing. Love your neighbor. Buy local.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR. Copperhead 1240 AM, Southern Rock, Kickin' Country, and Tennessee Talk. Picture that curl steam rising from your fresh baked pizza. And in a flash, let it take you aloft, teasing all your senses. I'm talking about Jet's Pizza. If you eat out of Jet's and Dixon, or take home your steaming deep dish square pizza, you'll love Jet's. They use only the best ingredients in a family recipe. Also try the cheesy bread, wings, chicken, or bread with bacon, antipasta or Greek salad. Jet's Pizza at Buy Low near the S-Curves. Open till 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. You can order online or have it delivered. JetsPizza.com. That's JetsPizza.com. Or call them now. They'll have it ready when you get there. 757-1616. That's 757-1616. Hot and delightful above the clouds. Jet's Pizza. Now that's a 10.
Hello, guess what? Haven't you heard about the new Flight Museum in Hickson? The Hickson Flight Museum is one of the most unique places you'll ever visit. We believe in not only preserving history, but giving it life. Our exhibits are living, breathing historical artifacts that are regularly maintained and operated. Hickson Flight Museum, offering guided tours, birthday parties, field trips, plane rides, event rentals, and air shows. Located near the Dallas Bay Sky Park, 1824 East Crabtree Road in Hickson, 423-228-2359. The Hickson Flight Museum. Its curators encourage visitors to climb into the pilot seat of a North American T-28, turn to peer into the cockpit of a 1946 Taylorcraft, and enjoy a scenic trip over Chattanooga in a 1958 Piper Apache. We're open for individual or group tours, and we welcome school groups, Boys and Girl Scout troops, or any group interested in learning about aviation history and what we do. Please visit our website at hicksonflightmuseum.org. 423-228-2359. Check us out on Facebook. The Copperhead 1240, Southern Rock, Kickin' Country, Tennessee Talk.
All right.
1240.
Don't strike the weak.
Get the latest news and information now on your Twitter account. Search Hot News Radio. That's Hot News Radio. For the latest news and information, go to Hot News Radio. That's Twitter.com. Then search Hot News Radio. Hot News Radio is a service of Copperhead 1240. Live.
Hi, David Toulis. Remember, Friday morning, you, my listener, are invited for a coffee on my dime to Panera Posse, which meets in Hickson at the Panera Bread Store, just up the hill from the increasingly decrepit retail site, Northgate Mall. 6:45 a.m. Bagels and coffee. Panera Posse rounds up the bad guys and puts the money back in the bank. And the money is specie. If you want to know what specie is, I can give you a very general working definition. If you join me for a cup of Joe, again, at Panera Posse Friday morning. Our show is sponsored by some good local people, and I want to mention Josh Jennings, whose idea that we should love our neighbors and shop local is just a terrific idea. It's a terrific concept. Love your neighbor, buy local. That's how, if we understand the multiplier effect of the dollar, we in Chattanooga and Hamilton County will survive the next series of meltdowns. We have more of them ahead as a brittle system controlled by government, not responsive to the marketplace, denying feedback that the market is supposed to give it, hugely expensive. When you don't have a transparent market, you have rising costs. And look at so-called inflation in the medical field. Look at inflation in the educational cartel, the industrial school line of business. These are systems that offer no real benefit anymore, and they're not about real education. They're about workforce development. They're about propaganda, about helping the messianic state survive by sowing revolution, discontent, and consumerism down below. Here where we are, right? We're at the bottom of society, you, my listener, and I, the common people. Well, my name is David Toulis, and I am a very common person. I am the slow man of Chattanooga, and I don't take umbrage at being called that, though I have been called an asshole by one of Chris Brooks's friends, one of those liberal sort of fellas, and that's okay. I can take that. And there's a certain amount of abuse that I just take good naturedly because I am very mild mannered. We live in an economy, a national economy that is not what you think. And here's how I want you to just consider that your own assumptions about how, let's say, politics work are really not on stable footing. I was hearing about Carroll Quigley this morning from a long interview that John Taylor Gatto was giving to another intellectual. And he says Carroll Quigley's book is called The Tragedy and the Hope, and when it came out, it came out by mistake, and Macmillan had to break the plates for it so it would not be republished. It sold out instantly. I think 9,000 copies were printed, and The Tragedy and the Hope is from an insider who favors the global elite and describes them in detail. It's a book I've not ever had a chance to buy, and I've not really sought a copy down. They're floating around in photostat versions of it today, and maybe it could be on Scribe D, who knows? But it's the insider's story of how the world really works, with approval by Dr. Quigley, and Gatto points out something just really struck me. That George W. Bush ran against a Democrat. Who are the people who can arrange the race that he had with John Kerry in such magnificent, desirable formula? And here's the formula. Both Bush and John Kerry were students at Yale. Bush graduated in 1968, and Kerry was in the class of 1966. And they were members of the Skull and Bones, where I think one of the rites is you have to masturbate on a skull. I think that's one of the rites. But anyway, they were both members of the same cultic, world-ruling, we are going to control everything kind of groups, a very select group of privately educated men, right? Privately schooled men. So how is it that you have two men who are members of the same secret society running against each other for president? How does that work? Well, I mentioned that just to suggest to you that the national economy is not a place where you should have much hope, right? A lot of your friends are they think a lot about politics. Listen to Rush Limbaugh, some of the great talk show hosts. They talk constantly about national politics. Well, how can they matter? If the system is so controlled by people who can have two members of the same tiny exclusive club run against each other for president, what use is there to talk about whether Republicans can shape up and reform the government, or whether Democrats will ever really start thinking about Joe's six-pack and the common worker? Why would anyone think about faulting either party for what it stands for? The Republicans rose from the Lincoln Party, which rose from the Whigs, and the Whigs were always favoring what were called in the 19th century internal improvements. They were the internal improvements party, using the federal dole to support business and to have government intervention in the marketplace, to have government become a business player. And of course, nowadays, in what is called consolidated government, government is the largest financial, industrial, and commercial player in the country. So why are we surprised to think that nothing can happen that's favorable in national economy? That's why I mention this to explain why I'm a localist, why I am a nougat-centrist. Now, nougat-centrism is something that we talk about on our show. That's our theory, but it's not a trademarked term. You may certainly use it if you want, and I think I coined the term, but it's not very original if you think about it. But our theory is, and my thinking is, that we cannot save ourselves by giving another thought about Senators Alexander and Corker, and whether or not Mr. Fleischman, Chuck Fleischman, will do the right thing if he's reelected, or whether his young challenger Weston Wamp, is he really better? How much effort do we want to give to thinking about these things? So somehow there needs to be, in your mind and in my mind, a kind of resignation. I call it Christian resignation, but you're not a Christian, I understand. And in your case, there may be another type of resignation, but a sense that nothing can be fixed. I think that's important to realize, that it can't. It cannot be fixed because there are two controlling parties, a duopoly, the Democrats and the Republicans. And so Carroll Quigley's book, which unveils a lot of these things, is helpful, and when you think about the fact that Kerry and Bush were both members of the Skull and Bones Society in Yale, graduating within 2 years of each other. There is not a lot of hope because the other people, the good people, control all that machinery. It's out of your reach. You cannot influence it, okay? You can write double the number of letters to your congressman, and it won't matter a bit. I'm not saying that you're wasting your time in every case, but generally speaking, in the macroeconomic sense, it will not matter. And so that's why our show is really about the positive steps we need to take in terms of local economy. And the local economy theory contradicts the high-handed views of Chris Anderson, who has a top-down, state-centered perspective. And of course, in his dream, not only does the federal government favor homosexuality in everything that it does, not only does it allow legal causes of action against Christians, against store owners, against landlords, against other people who are Christians in their living. Well, they do want that. They want to change the law so that there become causes of action in the statute. Just let me say something about that. Your rights belong to you, and they come to you from God. God gives you rights. They're commonly understood to be common law rights: the right to property, the right to your life, the right to be free from search and seizure. And your rights are against two sides, right? You have rights to these things, to these benefits, as against private parties, and also rights as against the state. The state never has rights, okay? States, governments don't have rights. They have authority. Get that straight. A lot of, even college professors say this wrongly. They misrepresent what governments have. Governments have power and you have rights as against them. In other words, your rights prevent them from moving against you in certain areas. You have the space of liberty in the place where your rights extend, and to the point where they stop, then government authority can act and have control. But the gay theory wants to create all new rights, which become causes of action. When a right is created in a law, when a non-constitutional but a statutory right is created in a statute, what happens is you can become victimized by a cause of action. That is the new right, right? A new right is established. The person who's exercising that right can now go after you because you've hurt him. You have injured him. You have refused to make, when he tells you that he's going to use your baked goods to stuff it up his partner's backside and then eat it. You can't say no, okay? You'd sell him pastries happily and readily, you would. But when he tells you that that's what he's going to do, you say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do business with you. That becomes a cause of action. You are an anti-homosexual bigot. You are an anti-gay bigot. He's going to try to use the criminal part of the statute to prosecute you, and he's going to try to get you indicted for a hate crime. You see, a hate crime is different from a civil action. The gays are going in this direction. They're going in this direction, and they won't get all the way they want. Okay, the revolt will happen against them before they get that far, but there will be numerous instances where extraordinary causes of action will be filed against people, and against ministers of the gospel, against missionaries, against innocent statements, against people in the free market deciding to trade with whom they will and not trade with whom they won't. And these will become lawsuits. Some of them will be construed as crimes. This is not local economy. Okay, this perspective is not the gracious thinking of the other-centric local economy that will bring prosperity to Chattanooga. I think we need to consider how the trajectory of Chris Anderson's argument will go. It is part of an existing trajectory. He's just a little flick of light on that on that scheme in the law, in government, and in the courts. And it's going to be hard to stop it. It's going to be hard to stop it. I do encourage you to participate, though, as a resident of your district in Chattanooga, and take part in the effort to remove Chris Anderson. He is being supported by out-of-state, even out-of-country homosexuals who are giving him money through PayPal and through the Victory Fund and Human Rights Campaign websites, which have portals through which money can flow to defend his seat. He is defending his seat in the city, or on the city council. So what I want to hold on a second. Yeah, the coverage on the Anderson case has been intense today, and I wanted to not overlook some of the items, even though they're sort of here and there. They're not terribly important, but yeah, in the WRCB staff report says that Chris Epperson, his former rival, is against the recall. It is against the recall. I think at Nooga.com or Chattanoogan.com, the readers polled are not in favor of the recall when I looked this morning. Epperson saying he says the election should serve as a recall. In other words, don't strike the root. Mr. Epperson, who once was rival for the seat on the city council with Chris Anderson, says effectively, don't strike the root. Once one vote, one election every 4 years is sufficient. Notice how patronizing these people are. Charlie Wysong, who's called the recall organizer, says, let me say this, if he was straight as narrow and had treated the people of this district like he's treated them, I'd be for recalling him as well. So Charlie Wysong is described as the organizer, though he says he's just a helper. He is just providing intelligence as to how the process works. James Mahan on TV 12 has a fairly lengthy report quoting a good number of people regarding the discrimination bill that was withdrawn in the state Senate. And he quotes some local homosexual notables, Marcus Ellsworth, Willie McBride, there's another one there, he's a gay black man, and there's another one, Mario Forte, a gay owner in Chattanooga. I'm not sure what line he's in. He says, most businesses in Tennessee probably aren't aware that this bill is even being introduced. Okay, so it's about the bill. But the story goes on down to quote other people, including a woman named Barbara Davis from Cox Bakery. She says, I'm in business to sell to the public. I don't discriminate against anybody if they come in, or whoever wants a cake. I will do the best job I can, and that's just what I do. And that's important. I was making that point just a moment ago. Ordinarily, if a homosexual wants to buy something from you, there's not a big deal about it. You just say, sure, you're in the marketplace. But the point is, the trouble comes when the homosexual says, I want you to bake me a wedding cake for my union with another man. At that point, when the baker of the cake knows the purpose of it, then he has every right to say no. But if he doesn't know, then it's no evil for him, and he's under no twinge of conscience to make the cake. But the point is, when the trouble comes when the homosexual self-consciously promotes his amazing lifestyle and wants to have the marketplace serve him in its consummation. So generally, gays get service just like anybody else in restaurants, for accounting services, for other things. There's a quote from Todd Watkins, a manager at Tweedy's Automart in East Ridge, and he says, my belief is that man and woman is what validates a true marriage. If you want to argue that, you can simply argue with God. And James Mahan needs a copy editor because there are a lot of run-on sentences in his story, and God should be capitalized. In the story on WDEF by Caitlin Jones today, I think these may have run yesterday, but they're all today's news. Wysong says he has done his job. He has not done his job. Number two, he's insulted everybody, and number two, he has deeply offended the moral values of those people over there. and he's disrespected the community leaders of Alton Park and Piney Woods. And there's a story that interviews Mr. James, the attorney, on Caitlin Jones on TV 12. She interviews him, and he explains how, in the argument that he's making, that Christianity cannot be a cause for anybody, a cause of action or a motive for anybody behind the recall, because that makes the recall discriminatory, and that involves the County Election Commission in a tyrannical, unconstitutional act against Mr. Anderson. So he's quoted. That was very interesting to get and to see an interview with him. I had not met him before. So I think the question that I want to dwell on just a moment is the whole idea of capital and the family, because the homosexual world is an impersonal world. It does not view capital as personal, as local economy requires. It views capital as impersonal and sort of oriented in the state. Value, truth, future security, health, welfare, health care. These are in the gay framework. These reside in the state. The family is the family has a completely different idea. In family, welfare is and capital are reciprocal and personal. By that I mean there's a back and forth. The son receives from you his inheritance, and he takes care of you. If he's the eldest son, he gets a double portion, as it is given in the Old Testament. He gets the double portion. Why? Because he takes care of mom and dad. That's assumed generally to be the first son. He has charge of the care for his old parents, and just makes me think how, let's see, was it which Old Testament figure? I think it was Joseph. We were reading this, and the other day at family worship, and it was Jacob, Israel. When he was about to die, he had all his sons surround him, and he gave a prophecy and a description of each son of the 12 sons. And the long one very favorable for Judah, another long and favorable one for Joseph, and some very harsh comments of other sons who were unstable as water and violent and sort of wicked. And then he pulled his feet up into his bed and died. So it's funny. He had this very poetic and very deep conversation, and then he pulled his feet up in his bed and died. Well, how is it that we don't have that anymore? We don't have people who have their wits about them until the last moment. They are drooling, not knowing who they are, incapable of standing, not mobile, and they fill the nursing homes at state expense. Well, I like the idea of Jacob in the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis, giving those final words of wisdom, the prophecies and the counsel, if you will, to his sons. And it shows how welfare works. He was cared for by his sons, and when he died, it was in their care. In the Christian theory, capital is reciprocal, meaning it has a back and forth, and it's personal. It comes from family. And reciprocity is, again, the back and forth relationship between the generations. That is something that is absent in the gay theory. The gay theory is not about capital and capitalization, meaning money. It's about decapitalization. And when you look at how civil government decapitalized a society, understand that the gay theory is doing the same thing. It has the same idea of a short-term perspective, of consumption. John Maynard Keynes was a homosexual, and he had the whole theory elaborately devised of deficit spending. Spend it now, spend it now, spend it now. And we're not going to be here tomorrow to worry about it. We don't have to worry about the future. We don't have to worry about our children. And what happens is when civil government replaces the functions of the family, it destroys the productive mutual relations between generations, because gays don't have children and they don't think in terms of family. Though they pretend to think in terms of marriage, they don't think in terms of family. You have destruction. You have the loss of personal bonds. You don't have young people responsible for old, right? And that's what's happened with Social Security. Social Security breaks the bond between our generation and our parents' generation. We don't have to care for them. The state will do it. The family name, which is so central to life in the Christian theory, the family name is erased and computerized numbers are substituted. Think about handling your dad's estate. It's all by number, right? You have to have the right numbers to make any changes. The incentives for families, as Gary North says, to preserve their capital, whether for old age or for generations into the future, are reduced. For each generation's economic future is no longer legally bound to the success and prosperity of the children. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow there will be government checks. But the dissipation of family capital, when it becomes a culture-wide phenomenon, destroys economic productivity, which in turn destroys the tax base of the state. That's where we are now. The state cannot write the promised checks, or if it does, the monetary unit steadily grows worthless as fiat money inflates the price level. So it's interesting. The inflation story fits in with the Chris Anderson story. This is David Toulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. Check out my website, Nuganomics.com.
She left us here. Death is so much more